This conference will now be recorded.
You're good with talking about something else too, Danny? Yeah, I kind of figured.
Wow, nobody wants to hear me lecture on fires and recovery. It's okay. It doesn't. I mean, my feelings have already been hurt enough if I had any. So I promise you, it's all good.
Modify, created time.
So what do you got? Anybody got questions? Scott, Tom, Danny, Rachel?
I don't.
Just thought I'd throw it out there.
So, who here, Danny? Do you have any of the Auroras, any of the fiber lasers? Actually, any fiber in general. No, Scott.
Yeah, I got a comm marker.
Okay. So I don't know if you saw my live this morning, but I'm a Mac guy, right, Tommy?
Yeah. Oh, so are we.
So, talking to these USB only machines is very difficult when you have multiple. So, I usually have to run multiple at a time, and it's a pain because you have to disconnect them or use a USB switch to stop communicating.
Or turn them off in our case.
Right. Yeah, or turn them off completely so it doesn't pick up the other one. So I ended up putting Surfaces, just a Windows Intel processor Surface on the front of them, and now it's an encapsulated machine and it has its own everything right there, which is really nice. And I could run one doing one thing, one do another thing. I could do samples on another, and I grab power off of the main key switch too, so it charges via the key switch, which is nice. Just a clean set.
We're going to wind up doing it, whether Lois likes it or not. Well, we had a client come over the other day and needed a bayonet engraved. So I had already had the fiber on. I turned the UV on. I'm trying to switch back and forth. Nothing's happening. I'm getting the framing signal. Ready, nothing was happening. So I had to shut everything off, restart it. And that was just very frustrating when, that's something that was 3 bayonets at like a minute and a half each. It took longer to fix the system than it did. So I may wind up this weekend doing those and then hitting up Lightburn for a few more instances.
Right. Yeah, which they're usually pretty good about. The nice thing is that Lightburn is the same regardless of what platform you're on.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing that I had was setting up a share folder in Windows and then adding it to the Mac. But now, whenever they're on, an external drive pops up on the Mac, and I can just drop my folders or my files into that, and they show up over there. It was really, once I understood it and I reformatted the one, it was super easy.
I may get with you on that one because that was the hardest, because the CNC router runs off of Vectrix, which runs off of Windows. So
Right.
trying to just drop that stuff into the cloud is, 3 or 4 days for the Windows to finally communicate with the cloud.
So the funny thing about the cloud and Lightburn is Lightburn does not like it.
Yeah.
So I decided to try Google Drive, and Lightburn just would not operate. It was trying to find the files. My art library went away completely. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. So I stopped that real quick.
Yeah, that'll be in the near future for me.
Samples. All right, I figured out how to share these with you, Rachel, if you're still here. Yeah, all right. Hit it.
Mark, welcome. If you got questions, raise your hand. Just holler at us. Decided a few minutes ago that nobody wanted to hear me lecture on fires, preventing them or recovering from them. So this is a question and answer period, unless you really want me to give the lecture.
I've been trying to price. Sorry, my voice.
It's all
I
good.
don't know if trying to price fire extinguishers, CO2 fire extinguishers.
They're horribly expensive.
Yeah, 220 is about as cheap as I can see them. Is that about the going rate?
Give or take for what you're needing. And the problem with CO2 extinguishers is you can never tell if they're charged. You have to weigh them to make sure that the compressed gases inside of them are still there. That's how you kind of check a CO2. Most of them just have the bell and the handle on them. They don't have a gauge like an ABC does that tells you it's full. But I'm the guy that's going to tell you that unless you're really thinking you're going to have a massive fire, a spray bottle of water is going to be your best extinguisher.
Okay.
And it's just, I've even looked at some of the little, what are those little cans now? The little fire suppressant that comes in like a paint can. I thought about grabbing a couple of them just to test them out around here to see how they worked and how much residue and things of that nature. I may still next time we go to town. I don't leave the house very often, so.
hmm
But for the most part, a spray bottle of water. If it's gotten to that point that you're really needing a big extinguisher or something, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever, then you might as well hit it with a cheap ABC extinguisher and just, know that you're going to have to clean up a mess. But that's 28 years in the fire department talking. That that's the purpose is to save your house or save your structure. The laser's already going to be damaged.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
kind
you.
of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Um, we keep a spray bottle of water, which is fantastic for smoldering wood. From what I found with acrylics, as soon as you kill the machine, most of the time the acrylic will go out, unless it's already reached that uninhibited chain reaction where it's nonstop and burning, and melting and burning and melting and burning. So at that point, for us, it's just throw it outside the door. Some people don't have that option, and that's where a water bottle or a small extinguisher would do well.
Okay. I
So
appreciate it.
one of the things that I've noticed doing a lot of that acrylic cutting with the new 80-watt RF, keeping it off of the bed helps in most cases, but I tend to overpower it so it still hits the honeycomb. And that off gas that you get from cutting, you can actually see the off gas under the cut in between the honeycomb. And as soon as the spark hits the honeycomb, it ignites, and it's a poof. It's a gas ignition because of the off gas from the honey or from the acrylic. So I'm thinking have to separate even further with some of these acrylics, just so you don't that
so
off
the
gas ignition.
so what you're getting there is as the laser superheats that acrylic, it turns it from a solid to a gas. That gas or that vapor is actually what burns. Solids
Right.
really don't burn, they have to vaporize, and you get that pocket of vapor that's just ready to ignite. And I know we've talked about it before with acrylic. I've seen that you get more flame when you're in front of the exhaust on these machines than you do on the left or the right of where the exhaust comes into the back of the machine or goes
Right.
out of the back of the machine. That pulling effect seems to do something with those vapors, and you get a bigger flame in that 6 or 8 inch opening.
I would probably say something like a supercharger or turbo, where you're kind of compressing or pulling in the oxygen across it.
Exactly, but I've seen it go from no flame to a flame,
Yeah.
and then go away only when it is in front of the exhaust. The stupid stuff we look at when we're cutting stuff.
Hey, Lois. What's up, George?
Well, since we're on the topic of extinguishers or
Yo,
anything like that, does anybody have any questions about them or what they should use or what they shouldn't use? I know that people talk about, oh, we've got fire blankets, we've got this, or we use this, and I stop and think going, okay, you have a fire blanket, so that requires you to lift up the lid, undo this blanket, and reach in and cover it up. Are you that comfortable with fire to do that? I am. A lot of people aren't. If it's reached that point that it's outside of the machine, a blanket is going to do absolutely nothing. Those, halotrons do well. It's less residual mess. And what was the cost on that one, George?
Sorry, I had to take myself off mute. I want to say it was about 7,500 bucks.
That's not a bad price.
I know I got
No.
a guy.
I got a guy.
Um,
Hey,
and
got a guy.
when everybody went away from Halon, because of its damage to the ozone layer, that kind of brought on the Halotron. So, but again, it's really up to you what you want to use. An ABC works. It's just going to make a mess, but you really don't have to empty it. One little squirt most of the time will put a small fire out inside of a machine. By the way that the ABC extinguisher works by breaking the uninhibited chain reaction, which puts the fire out. Doesn't smother it or anything like that. It just breaks that chemical reaction. So a short little burst is well enough to most of the time to put one out.
I'm probably grabbing whatever's on fire and throwing it on the floor.
And that's kind of what we do. Never hit pause. I've learned that if you think you've got a fire, don't hit the pause button, because the pause button causes the air to keep flowing.
I would probably push that to the back of the machine.
Move the head out of the way.
You get the head out of the way, right?
Yep, but we ran into that once before where we hit pause and all it did was force air right into the smoldering bit,
Right.
and just made things worse.
Yep.
So I would say never hit pause. Just move the head out of the way and throw it outside if you can.
George.
That was on a piece of black limba.
Jorge.
He's not paying attention to you.
No, I guess not.
I am paying attention. Just takes me a second to come off mute. Thomas.
So,
don't go there.
So, oh, you guys. So you missed the beginning where I went over what I just did with my my fiber lasers.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. I'm gonna put my camera on here. All right, there we go. So, all right, can you see? So I'm running.
Yes.
I'm running surfaces on the machines. They are now independent, and I can send files directly to the surfaces. And yes, I know you're a Mac guy like me. But what I did, clear this off real quick. Sorry. So what I did was took my power block here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I ran it through the LED and up, so it is self-contained. So now it charges, everything is done on its own for this machine. I don't have to worry about switching. I don't have to worry about, like before, I was using this, right? So I can shut off the USBs and not communicate and send files to the wrong machine and stuff like that. But now it's all independent. I can control everything from right here to this machine.
That's pretty cool.
It's helped me out a lot because now I could run multiple machines at the same time without having to disconnect and reconnect. And Yeah, it's much better.
And do you have a file server that you're pushing and pulling that from?
I'm just sharing files, so you can create a file on the actual what's it called, on the Surface, and also on your Mac that is shared on your network. So it acts like a second and third drive, and I just drop my files into the folder, and they show up on the Surface. It's fairly
Hmm,
simple.
interesting. How long have you been running that?
This
About
week,
48 hours.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm looking at potentially getting once Thunder announces a higher wattage UV, either that or potentially 100 watt fiber.
okay. So you're running the light now, right?
I'm running a 5 watt Aurora 8 and a 50 watt Aurora Light
Okay.
with a 51
Yep.
Nova 51, and then potentially another gantry style laser this fall
Nice.
because I now have a commercial building.
Uh-oh, you got it, didn't you?
So I'll be moving sometime around August, September, plus minus.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Danny. It's been a long time coming. No more 288 square foot garage.
There's nothing wrong with a small little shop. It's cozy.
1,735 square feet sounds a lot better.
Anybody got any other topics they want to discuss? Ask a question. Okay.
Off
I
the
take
wall.
silence as acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, bring up some off the wall stuff if you got it.
I burnt through 2 more lens caps.
You need one of those
Sticky
red.
hang down things. I just ordered 2 of them. Yeah.
Let's see. I just leave mine off. Then you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it. Yeah, once it's off, it just doesn't go back on.
Yeah. I switch out lenses on occasion. So how hard is it to remove? I know removing the base on this thing's pretty easy, but to get it through a 36-inch commercial door,
Yeah, remove the base and flip it up on its side and shimmy it through.
which side?
Uh,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. I mean, I guess if you want to consider electronics and stuff, the left side of the machine only has the Z motor. Everything else is on the right side. So,
So you'd recommend getting it vertical, not
well,
horizontal, long way?
yeah, you're gonna have to take off the like if you're gonna shimmy it on like a piece of carpet or something, cardboard or something like that. I would take the fan guards off, the filters,
Okay.
so you don't rip those off.
I was going to
Like,
put it on 2 dollies.
yeah, then yeah, just I would probably still take those off.
Okay.
And then that side, the inputs aren't there, input outputs aren't there, so you don't have your PC, your U disk, so you should be safe.
Is that the stronger side, the short side, instead of going with one of the long ones, or?
Nah, it's a tank. Do whatever you want to it.
Gotcha. And the glass tube is secured technically because it's strapped in.
Correct. Yeah, it's on a silicone strap, which is very
Yes,
difficult. Like once it hooks on there,
that's
that tube
it.
is not moving. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember when I unpacked it, I took photos of everything, and I remember there was quite a bit of packing foam in there.
Yeah, it really reminds me of, I remember the octopus you used to get at the bubble gum.
Yes,
It reminds me of that. That's how sticky it is. It won't go anywhere.
yes.
Yeah, I've seen the results after they flipped, and those straps will hold.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Jason, Elijah, welcome. As we sit here in awkward silence.
Not awkward for me. I'm replying.
Yeah, and I'm not because I'm running this one. So if anybody's got a question, let us know. We kind of came to the conclusion, but I will continue on. Without slides if necessary. Fires, they suck. They happen. Getting them out as quick as you can and giving us a call. Well, I shouldn't say giving us a call. Sending us an email is a better term to use with detailed photos. That way we can help put a list together for parts that you may or may not need. But really, that's what it comes down to. The Thunders have the Nova series has the heat sensors built into under the gantry. The 63 has 2. Everything else has 1.
I mean, there's enough people here now. Do you want to pull it up for a little bit?
I can.
Do it. Might
Yep.
as well.
I spent the time and made the slides. So. I hit the wrong button. Damn, now I gotta find it. Where did it go? Oh, there it is.
Just
Look
kidding.
right over it. I don't like technology. Okay, so yep, fires. So again, basics on fire. What we all know is the fire triangle: oxygen, heat, and fuel. You got to have all 3. Add one more side to it, which is the uninhibited chain reaction, and you have a tetrahedron. Take any one of these away, and the fire will go out. Reduce the oxygen level, it'll suffocate itself. Take away the heat source, it'll go out, or remove the fuel. And we've kind of already had these discussions. If something's on fire, throw it outside. It won't go further. The uninhibited chain reaction, to key to that is that's how an ABC fire extinguisher works. What everybody has in their homes or cars or whatnot. The ABC extinguisher breaks the uninhibited chain reaction, causing the fire to extinguish. It doesn't do anything else. There's no real need unless you're doing a lot of metal work and working with magnesium or getting aluminum over 1300 degrees. I don't see a need for a D, which is combustible metals. The C's pretty much just about gone away. The very specific ones. That's why we now have an ABC extinguisher. But again, there's also the Halotron and stuff like that since Halon, or the carbon dioxide extinguisher. Safety for your machines. Never leave the machine unattended. Make sure you're there with it. Sometimes even turning your back can be a little bit of a problem, but nobody really wants to hover over top of their laser and watch it cut, except for us when we're doing acrylic. Because, that's the pucker factor right there, because acrylic seems to cause more problems than anything. Know your material. Again, acrylics. Have an extinguisher handy. People talk about fire blankets. You got to get up and close personal with the fire blanket to make it work. If you've never used a fire extinguisher, there's always, if you read the side of it, it'll tell you to pass, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, and sweep from left to right. And then, when we talk about materials, make sure you've looked at an MSDS or an SDS sheet for your material to know if it's going to give you any toxic fumes or if it's highly flammable. And then consult the manual and safety docs, the documentation that we have on the knowledge base. So under know your materials, again, acrylics. Acrylics seem to be the cause of a lot of fires. People turn their backs on them, or they don't have their air adjusted right. I know when we do training, people ask me about acrylics, and the key to a smooth, glossy edge is the right amount of air, which has a flame to it, or the lack of air having a flame to it, versus high air, and there's typically no flame, but you get the rough edges to it. So there's a fine line between a smooth, glassy edge and you just caught your laser on fire, if you ask me. George, you got a question?
Yes, sir.
What you got?
So speaking of acrylic, I'm cutting it right now. And I've been noticing that it's harder and harder for me to cut through acrylic. I have to keep cranking the power up more and slowing the speed down. But it does fine with wood and cutting other materials. Think that could be a misalignment rather than the tube wearing?
Check your alignment. Check your color of your tube. Your machine's about 3 years old, isn't it?
About 3.5.
About 3.5. So yeah, start looking at the color of your tube.
Start buying.
Also, start setting money aside for one. You're probably going to notice that it's a very light pink.
And where would that be on the tube?
The whole tube.
Half and less.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Copy that.
the entire tube, the beam, you're going to see it in there. If it's a pink to purple is pretty good. Pink to white, that lighter shades of pink, especially if you can see a white, almost like the center of it's white. You're going to be putting it to bed here soon.
Copy that.
And I say soon. It may be tomorrow. It could be a year. You know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
you may just have to up your lower end of your power to cut through. We're noticing it on the 130 watt. It's the color of it is about half the life of the tube.
Copy that.
So we push
What do I
that
do
tube. We
because-
push that machine. What you got, Sam?
I was going to say, what do I do? Because I run the RV in it, so it's pink all the time.
You may have to drain it.
Yeah, you may have to drain it to get an accurate, look.
And,
Okay, I was just trying to throw my monkey into the wrench.
I know, Sam.
And George, for you, it's going to come down to it may last another year and engrave fine, but it won't cut. So it's going to come down to productivity. How much are you willing to lose in production time?
And it's that inner tube, correct? Not the outer?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at that dead center, that that's an outer sleeve, and that inner. If for us that run antifreeze in it, you can see where the beam is right down the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of peachy.
You're not looking at this while it's on, correct? You're looking at it when it's off?
No, you're looking at it while it's running.
Yep.
And in the back. Yeah, it should be a light glow. So
Not where the copper tip is. You're talking I should be looking in the back where it winds up.
So you got your whole glass tube, right?
Yep.
Your anode and cathode are at either end. In between, so you're going to have two sections of it that are probably more pink than the others. Actually, the ends are typically white, and the middle will probably be a little bit more pink. But we're looking for the color across the whole width of the tube.
Copy that.
The whiter the whiter it gets, the less gas you have.
Mm.
So like a light pink to a white pink is not good. That's on its way out.
And when
White.
I originally got it, I guess it was more purpley.
Correct.
Yes.
Purple. I like that purpley.
Exactly.
So you're serious? Look at it while the tube is firing, and
Yep,
it
actually-
won't mess with your eyes.
No, it literally looks like neon.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not.
well,
It's
now I
not
know what to
bright.
power my discotheque with.
Just watch what's coming out of the business end of it.
Yeah, you don't want to look down the outlet of it for sure, but you're just looking at the plasma being created inside the tube. In fact, you guys continue yours, and I'll fire this up and I'll show.
Gotcha. You tell me when to stop. Okay, so again, back to knowing your materials. I love these segues. Woods. So softer woods, and we have hardwood and softwood. Softwoods are your trees that have needles. Hardwoods have leaves. So your softwoods like pine or spruce, they're higher in sap content, and sometimes may have a tendency to burn a little bit easier, smolder more, catch fire, things of that nature. Think about it. Pine sap is also a primary ingredient. You make turpentine, and turpentine's highly flammable. Anybody that lives in the South knows that you can dig up a pine tree stump and it'll burn easy because all the sap settled in there. Textiles, cloths, fabrics, things of that nature. You may have some issues depending on what those materials are made of. 100% cotton doesn't really burn, but spandex melts. So be mindful of your materials that you're using, and paper and cardboard. Make sure you've taken off the tape or stickers or anything of that nature that may cause you some issues. Yes, paper and cardboard with the wrong settings, you will catch them on fire relatively easily. So, and here's your heat or the flame sensor, where it's located. It will start to scream when it goes off. So, again, there's one sensor mounted underneath the gantry. The 63s have two. And above, they start to register above 55 degrees Celsius. So how do we mitigate fires or flame ups? Air assist is the key for materials. If you notice that acrylic is starting to have too much of a flame, you just adjust the air. Add more air to it, that flame will go away. Again, never leave your machine unattended, especially while it's in use. Have extinguishers nearby, and any extinguisher will work. The key is to put the fire out. You can, figure out how to fix it later. If you're lucky, your insurance just replaces it and you can scrap it and get a new one. But the key is to extinguish it while it's inside the laser, not letting it expand to any structures or anything outside of the structure. So again, beware of your material types. Some materials are more susceptible to fire than others. We learned the hard way. We will not cut black limba. It's an exotic wood because it does like to catch fire and smolder if you do not have the settings right. And the last on this one before we switch over to Chris is keep your machine clean. What people fail to realize is all the residue that's on these machines, as it builds up, it's pretty much, if you're cutting wood, it's carbon. And carbon catches fire. So the better you can clean your machines and get that extra residue off, then if you do have a fire, it's not rapidly spreading. Materials in your crumb tray, clean them out, because as the fire passes, or the laser passes through, you will catch those pieces on fire and cause an issue in your crumb tray. Okay, Chris, it's all you.
Mark had a question in the chat.
Thank you. I didn't even have the chat up, and normally it came in.
Go ahead, Mark. What is Mark's?
Are there any signs for when the RF tube is dying?
Just fade off in power. You can't visually see it.
That is one of the drawbacks to having an RF tube. You can't look through that metal to see it.
There's not many. Can you, let's shut down the...
Yep, I got you covered, man. Working on it.
But don't RF tubes last like 2 to 3 times as long as the glass typically?
Yeah, about 10,000 hours is what they...
Yeah, it's That's insane.
All right. So obviously mine's already pink because you're going to lose audio.
Hey, Tommy, can you make him a bigger picture so he's the full screen or no?
I don't know. I can. Don't think I can.
Okay, check.
I'll be ordering a tube today.
So if you can see,
It's pink.
is pink. Is there residual antifreeze in that? Is that what I'm seeing around? Yes. But
Yeah. Yeah, I have antifreeze in mine.
which will change the shape of it, but the color of it a little bit. I know that that's a fairly new tube, so that darker purplish tint, purple to pink. What do we call it? Purplish? Was that the new word?
Purplish, yes.
Tommy, hold on a half second. Hey, CeeLo,
Yo,
can you go full screen or no?
you would have to select me, I believe.
There it is. Thanks, Elijah. Just hollered at me. Now, if you want to go back over there,
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, I don't.
you
I
see,
didn't. I'm not able to get him full screen though.
Yeah, let me see if I could also put the audio on this as well, because otherwise you lose me as I walk away.
I got you a little bit there.
All right.
Sam, if you double click on Chris's
Yeah.
picture, it pops it big.
Okay, so you have your. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so you have your test
Yeah,
button, which
we
is
hear you.
typically on your LPSU, right? You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you have your test button on the LPSU. We're pulling the opto board to fire the laser tube. And then, like, mine's missing the button, so I'm just going to use a Q-tip. You can see that I'm activating it. You can see the light flickering. You can actually hear it. But then we look at the tube. I'll turn you sideways, maybe. Can you all see it?
I can
I see
see.
it, especially at the tip. When it gets to the copper tip, it almost turns bright purple instead of pink.
Yeah, so that's what it's going to look like. Obviously, when you do this test of the LPSU and the tube, nothing's on the bed, right? And that's clear. Your
Crumb
eyes
trace
aren't going to
clear.
get hurt by, yeah, you're not going to get hurt by looking at the plasma being created inside the tube, though.
Technically,
Obviously,
you could do this while you're running the machine, right?
yeah, when the machine's running and you bypass the doors, you can open this up and see it. But it depends on what power you're pushing to it, right?
It's going to look different than. Okay, I'm going to get him back off of there. It's going to look a little different as if you're just running like 10 or 20% power than pushing the red button.
So you definitely want to run at 100% or push that button on the side of the LPU.
George, for you, lift the back of it up, pull the opto board, push your button, push your red button, and take a look at it.
Copy.
That's the easiest thing to tell you to do. We've lost you completely, Chris. No audio or visual.
Sure.
There you go. Now you magically reappeared.
Yeah, so the test button, we figured probably fires about 50%. And that's usually enough to tell what's going on.
So and we'll go back to this, and I'm not going to pull it back up because the last slide pretty much talks about what happens and what do you need to do You send us detailed photos, and we will help guide you through which parts that you may need and link the articles for you to make the repairs. That way, you're able to find the article and replace what you need to replace. And pretty much all the parts, all the articles cover replacing of all the parts. And that's the extent of the slides. We don't have to throw up the, any questions or anything like that. So if anybody's got any questions about mitigating or dealing with fires, just let me know.
Yeah, we
Glad
can
that there are no questions.
save a lot of the machines we have saved after a fire. And we can get all the parts if needed. If we don't have them here in the US, we can get China to ship them DHL directly to you. But yeah, we have saved a bunch of catastrophes.
I mean, as I look at photos from different fires, and typically you're going to, you're probably your belts, some of your belts, air hose, some wires, probably a lens, the things like that, the drag chain,
The plasticies, the melty.
exactly. As long as it doesn't get up to 1,300 degrees, you're not going to really melt aluminum. You may distort the honeycomb a little bit or the knife blades, but that would take a good fire to do that. You may bust the glass. You may have to scrub your glass. A camera, you may lose the camera.
Yeah, unless the temperature gets up super hot, your gantry should be okay.
Exactly. So it really is a lot of minor parts, but
replaceable parts. Yes.
Yes, replaceable parts. Thank you.
So in general, how many PSI are you running when you're cutting on a Nova series?
So Chris and I were just discussing this because somebody's having an issue reading the PSI because now the Nova Pluses come with a sensor, and once it's open, it's not reading your full PSI, right? Because it's flowing. So I put my finger underneath and watched my gauge, and it ramped right up to 30 PSI. Now, if I let go of that, it's at 14 PSI because it's flowing out. So I cut it in half when it's flowing. This is with an external tank.
Right.
The factory tank is about 6 to 7 PSI.
But I think when you hit you actually only get maybe like 1 point something on the flow reading.
Right.
There's a difference between flow and pressure.
Right.
And that's the hard thing for a lot of people to comprehend is we always talk about air as PSI. And like Chris said, all of our regulators are set. Well, each one's set a little bit different for the laser. On the 51, it's set at like 45 or 50 PSI on the last regulator at the coming to the laser. So by time you reduce that down from a half an inch and you go to the quarter of an inch or the 6 mil, and then through the machine and get to it, I think our digital readout is like 19 PSI while it's flowing.
Yeah, and Scott, you're gonna want to be careful of. I know it says 55 psi on the back of the machine. I would be concerned with spikes of air pressure. The gauge that the cheap gauge that you're probably using for your air separator, your water separator. I don't trust those a lot, so I run mine at about 30 to 40. And from what I think Tommy actually did some tests, those tubes are so small, they're not going to flow 55 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm running 30, 35 PSI all the time. I don't have to worry about those solenoids blowing out. And it's more than adequate amount of air to give you beautiful cuts and nice golden edges instead of charred.
Okay.
And that might give me something to play with here this week with the 51, because we have that one set the highest because it cuts the thickest material. Is, if I dial it down, at what point do I stop seeing the 19 on the gauge?
Right.
To see where
So I have the same setup you do off of your video, and I
Okay.
plumbed mine the same way. I can get at the regulator coming off the main air line, I'm at about 50, and then on my digital read, I'm at
Yeah.
21. Well, I can get it as high as 27, but I keep it around 21.
Okay.
That's probably very good right there.
Yeah, we've got no issues with 19 on our gauge, none whatsoever. Now the 3580, I've got that dialed down to about 25, but all it runs is cups. It's literally just a tumbler machine anymore. And sometimes Lois will run acrylic on it, because that 80 watt, we can get that low end of the tube down a little bit more for some acrylic work. And the 100 watt, I think I have that set about 35 or 40 psi on the regulator. Now, you can look at that video, and I pipe 75 psi straight in. Am I really getting 75 psi? Was it more? But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't change the cut one bit from the way we originally had everything set.
Yeah, and at anything above 50, I have seen the solenoids lock. I've seen it blow the seals. So we definitely, you don't want that head.
Yeah.
No, and that's why I bypassed everything and went straight to the head.
Right.
So Mark got a comment. It seems counterintuitive to use more air to put out the flame. So that more air is distributing the gases better. Without getting into too much detail, you have upper explosive limits and lower explosive limits. And by adding more air, you're taking something that's in the explosive level, their limits, and oversaturating it with air, so it's too lean to burn, or too rich to burn. The opposite way. We've literally done, and have seen it, where you take a 55-gallon drum of like gasoline, and you can take like a lit match, lit cigarette, lit anything, and flick it right into the liquid, and nothing happens. It extinguishes it. You go way too high and you get nothing, but there's a sweet spot. So by adding more air, you're taking that and expanding that sweet spot and making it a lot tighter. If that kind of explains how that works.
Yeah.
And you're pushing it and blowing it out. You're just,
And for the acrylic, there is an off gas, so pushing it out of the way.
Yep.
And I don't know why I was shocked, but I was watching, because I did have the half-inch acrylic raised above the honeycomb, and I was watching the beam hit the honeycomb and make the spark, and it would go poof,
poof, poof, poof.
Yeah, so I'm just igniting it with the spark. Otherwise it wouldn't have lit. So using a little bit of air to push that off gas away, I'm guessing it helps a little bit too. But yeah, it's all about parts per million, I'm guessing, right?
Yep. Sorry, too many years of running into burning buildings and teaching this stuff. It's actually a really neat trick to watch. You can freak people out that don't have a clue when you start talking about the upper and lower explosive limits, and how close you can get to something highly flammable like gasoline with things that are burning and nothing happens.
Yep. I've watched Mythbusters 2,
I don't think I've ever seen it. We just did it in real life. That's not But I'm glad it makes sense, Mark. On a different note, you talk about that, and you watch these old guys, 20, 30, 40 years ago, testing fate by flicking lit cigarettes into 55-gallon drums of gasoline. That same area, a guy walked in to the shop with a lit cigarette and exploded the building.
Fumes versus.
Yep,
Right?
he hit that perfect level with the lit cigarette and lit everything, but everybody else was, it was too rich to burn. Therefore, it all went out. Oh, look who shows up at the end. Welcome, Chris.
Just like tuning cars. I mean, you got a lean and a rich, and if you're
Yep.
not right there,
Exactly.
you lose power either way.
I didn't think about that. Weed eaters is what came to mind. And 2 cycles. So as we end this, if anybody's got any other questions, please don't hesitate. Even if you got to type them in the chat, it's all good. Nothing.
Keep me
What?
posted on how you're doing with those tablets, CeeLo.
I'm super happy right now. I don't.
Using Windows and loving it.
I don't. Yeah.
See.
Here we go.
Yeah. I didn't love the setup part of it, but now I'm just looking at Lightburn. It comes down to that. Once I have it set up, Lightburn's all I'm looking at. I can't really go wrong until Windows wants to do an update or something.
Can I ask you roughly what you paid for a Surface?
So if you look online, you can get some refurbed Intel. You got to do an Intel one. It's about $200.
It's pretty cost effective.
It is very cost effective to not have to deal with all the switching nightmares.
It's a lot cheaper than a Mac Mini and a screen.
Absolutely. And I wanted something that I could put right on it because I do have 3 in a row and it's so consolidated. I don't have room for a screen unless I put it over, and then I'd always be looking up because I'm so short. So I wanted something that I could put on the door that was light enough. And the Surface, iPad I would love, but iPads won't run it. Shut up, Myers.
Yeah, just
Well, they're the wrong processor. Not that they couldn't run it. Lightburn would just have to write software compatible with
Right.
that environment. Because you can control these over Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
Yeah, I may actually build an article of how I did it and what I did, and unless
That's what I was going to ask. Which one of y'all was going to write the article on how to do it?
Myers won't do this one, I'm sure.
No, I have no problem with that one.
Yeah.
It's a good application. Heck, you could even go even further, getting a small enough PC that fits inside of it, right? There's so many ways you could go with this scenario. So, they make the little PCs that are, a little bit bigger than a USB stick nowadays.
Yep.
As long as they have yeah, have you not seen those?
Look, we know I'm not the technology guy. Okay.
They've been doing those for a while. I know Mac probably can't do them, but yeah, they're tiny.
It's called a Mac Mini. I think that's as small as
Yeah.
it goes, or a phone.
Yeah, the budget's not many on that thing.
No.
You're probably what, $500 without a monitor?
Give or take 5 to 8.
Golly, I'm sure it's feature packed and all that, but sometimes you just need a little bit to run.
So George, the larger Surface I had, my kid had sitting in the closet for years and stopped using. It's 10 years old.
It works.
It works.
Still runs it perfectly. Mind blown.
I just the only thing that's killing me is the smug look on Myers' face.
You kind of get used to it.
It does make a difference.
It's very painful to see that.
Right?
Why I haven't done it yet.
Myers, you were. I can't get it out quite right,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah. It sounds like
close.
Fonzie trying to say wrong, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's.
the, the
I had to
opposite
tell
word.
him. I had to tell him, what was it, yesterday or
Yeah,
today,
it
that you were
was
right about
yesterday.
something, and damn it, I never heard the end of it.
Shot it. I'm gonna get it tattooed eventually. But yeah, technology. I mean, it's awesome to be able to do those little things. Be cool if we integrated a computer into them,
It would be nice.
or if we sold out of the box, ready to go computers, both Mac and Windows,
Oh Lord, can you imagine?
pre-configured. You know.
Talk about plug and play.
Mm-hmm. Heck, I mean,
You don't.
I
Suggest that to
run.
China.
Yeah, in my note, well, no, we would do USA based, just so that we produce the computer and all that stuff, pick the right one. But inside of my Node 51, I've got a computer, I've got a NAS storage system, and I got like a 32 port unmanaged switch in that back left corner. So it's my whole IT cabinet back there. But that one computer runs all my machines, and then most of my networking stuff runs through there. And then of course my NAS is there, so it's pretty nifty. Probably not
So
a good spot for that, but it's on the UPS, and that's why it's there.
Okay, so it's 5. I'm going to